Hi guys, my name is Dylan. It's been a long time, and we are back to this studio where it is a sharing session, which basically I share about property knowledge or even some investment knowledge. I received a very special email. It's my first email that I've gotten from an audience, which the title is Airbnb investment projects a scam. So he says, "Hi Dylan, I've been watching some of your videos where you talk about property investment, which previously you mentioned that you are not a fan of Airbnb, but I am actually considering to buy a property which is Airbnb focused in Johor. What is your take? Or would you still prefer property investment to be a long-term game? Thank you. Regards, Alan." So thank you so much. It's my first email that I've gotten, and I think it's a very straightforward question. So is Airbnb project a scam? But before we dive into that, right, let's understand what Airbnb is. Okay, so Airbnb is actually what we say a short-term stay concept, where it was actually founded back in US. So Airbnb is like there is no concierge, there is no room service whatsoever. It's generally more affordable compared to hotels. So how actually this Airbnb craze started in this global thingy, right? It actually started where two of the founders, they cannot afford to pay their rent, right? So they then think of subletting out one of their living rooms or one of the rooms for people to stay in temporarily for 2 to 3 days. So then it boils down to what Airbnb is now today. Generally, if I were to say is Airbnb a scam, definitely it's not. But then the reason why Airbnb is becoming such a very important role in this property sector, even travel industry, right, is because hotels are getting more and more scarce, if you realize. Like for example, right, if you were to start a hotel business in, let's say, KL, Johor, or whatever places, right, basically the whole hotel group, they need to own that particular building. They need to, maybe it's a boutique hotel, they have to buy 2 to 3 stories, they have to rent it, or that particular whole piece of land they have to build maybe 30-story high just to do hotel. So the risk is actually very high in terms of a business standpoint. If let's say there are 1,000 units, and this 1,000 unit is then bought by people like us, and then they are just hotel operators or Airbnb operators coming in to operate for you, then from a business standpoint, it cuts down a lot of costs. The main thing that I need to do is only I manage clients, do check-in, check-out for you, and etc. So I don't have to take the risk of buying the whole particular building or buying the whole plot of land or even renting it. So this is what makes Airbnb so powerful in today's market, and even it's affecting the hotel scenes as well. So the criteria of an Airbnb project generally, let's talk about in the rule of thumb, right? It's always very small in sizes because hotels are not big. Airbnb projects, I'm saying, hotels are not big. So it's maybe 200, 300 square feet, 400 square feet, 500 square feet, a studio type. And the smaller the size is, the higher the per square feet. This is the rule of thumb is in the property industry already. These two criteria, and I think generally Airbnb projects are nearer to landmarks. For example, in KL, you will be near to KL Tower, KLCC, Petronas Twin Tower, TRX, and etc. You'll be nearer to a lot of landmarks, sometimes even near to convention centers. Like for example, in Shah Alam, you have in Setia Alam, you will have a lot of Trefoils, all these hotels are actually, or Airbnbs are doing over there. And normally this kind of Airbnb projects, right, it always comes with an Airbnb operator like I mentioned earlier. Because me, if I buy into the house or the unit, normally I want hands-free or hassle-free. Like if I were to buy this studio, right, I don't want to manage anyone. I just want an operator to counting everything for me. Then at the end of the month or end of the quarter, I get the net profit. So this is a criteria of Airbnb projects. So let's talk about the pros and cons first. The positive thing or the pros of Airbnb projects like this smaller size one, I'm not referring to those landed houses where you go and make into Airbnb, no. I'm referring to small size units, Airbnb projects. So the pros are mostly for studios, right? It's a commercial title. So when commercial title, we are talking about 80 to 85% loan margin, and the tenure will be varying from 25 to 30 years, and etc. It depends on banks. So if you are a seasoned property investor, or if you have more than 2 residential properties, the third one, right, the third residential property will be 70%. But then if you were to buy your third property, a commercial property as your third property, then it will be 80 to 85. So it lessens the burden for you paying upfront down payment. That's one of the pros of Airbnb projects. And secondly, it will be a potential higher ROI lah. Okay, why do I say so? Is because today you're doing a business. Let's assume that Airbnb is a business for you. So let's say, for example, if today someone stays in a hotel, let's say if it's near KLCC or maybe near custom of JP, per night we are talking about maybe 200 or 250 ringgit. So rather than a normal rental, right? For example, let's say if I were to rent out the studio, it's maybe only 2,000 ringgit. If you divide by 30 days, right, it's only per day going for maybe 60 to 70 ringgit ish. But then if it's for a hotel style, per night I can charge you 150 or 200 ringgit. It depends on where the location you're at. So potentially you have a higher ROI, but then there are a lot of hidden costs in it lah. So this I'll talk about it later on in the cons part. And the third point will be you have a chance to own a property which is nearer to landmarks. For example, last time, right, back in those days, 10 years plus ago, owning a property in KLCC or beside TRX or even beside KL Tower, right, it's basically impossible because it's always bigger size. Last time there is no small size condo. Like even their small size is going for 1,000 square feet, 1,002 square feet. But now we have a lot in market, 300, 400 square feet, 200 square feet whatsoever. You have a lot of these kind of things in the market. When a smaller size property, even though the per square feet will be higher, going for 2,000, 3,000, SPA price or the net price, it's still very affordable for people to buy in. So in a way, you can tell other people that hey, you own a property in KLCC, but then it's a studio lah, but it's still a property ma, right? So this is some of the pros that I realized. And now let's look at the cons. The first thing that as an investor, right, I will look at is exit plan. For those who are buying Airbnb products, just bear in mind that it's very difficult to exit. Okay, when we buy into stocks, when there is profit, we want to sell it because if you don't sell, it's always paper gain. So same goes for property. Even though if let's say the property I earn money already, right? But if I were to sell it, it's very difficult to sell it. No one wants to buy such a small studio and I can only target maybe expats or maybe I can only target investors for this. So I think this is something that is quite bugging me and is very important. Unless of course, if you know how to use refinancing in the financial world, then it's fine. You know, studios are very good for refinancing. The second cons about this will be Airbnb products are generally very unstable. So which means that just now I was saying per day if I can charge you 200 ringgit, 150 ringgit, but then what if the whole month I can only manage to rent out 10 days? Okay, so 200 ringgit times 10 is only 2,000. But 2,000 is not the net profit that you'll be getting. Normally you do a profit sharing 80-20 where you get 80% or 70-30 you get 70%. And you have to minus off your maintenance fees, your cleaning fees and utility fees and etc. So there are a lot of hidden costs here. So if let's say if I only get to rent 10 days, how? It means that I'm actually losing money. So if you were to do something like this, then and that's why I feel that long-term game is always the better choice, is because I can predict already. This one, if I were to rent for 2,005, I can definitely get it throughout the whole year. If let's say if it's an Airbnb property, my potential ROI can go up to 4,000. But then how stable it is, how confirmed that the Airbnb operator can provide this thing to me. So it's something that we as investors, we have to take note on this. So this is one cons that we have to measure the risk lah. And of course, most importantly, Airbnb, you know, being a holiday or travel style of investment, it's very relying on holidays, school holidays, festive season, etc. So during festive season, of course, we can see hotels are always overbooked. For example, in Penang, it's always overbooked. Those in, I would say, in those kampong or maybe small towns, the hotels are always fully booked. Even for in KLCC, people do travel over to sightsee or whatsoever. So that's why during that time, your business is very good. But during peak season for work, then it's something to take note. Lastly, I think the last cons will be this Airbnb thingy, right? It's too relying on an Airbnb operator. For example, if this particular operator, they are not performing that well or they overpromise or they're dishonest to begin with. So then your property, you have to tie a contract with them. You have to tie 1 year, 2 years, 3 years or whatsoever. It's very relying on, in a way, the salesperson or the operator to rent out your house. So what if they're not doing a good job, right? So this is something that I think it's a risk to consider. But of course, there are good Airbnb operators as well. Like for example, I've stayed in Penang for a few times and some of the operators are actually doing very well. They really bring you up, you know, bring to your house. The cleanliness is very good. and occupancy is always at tip top. I have to pre-book. If I were to go to Penang, I have to pre-book 2 to 3 weeks before the date that I were to travel. It really depends on the Airbnb operator. So it's your due diligence to really check out the track record of the particular Airbnb operator. So my take of, if it's me, of course the context is quite minimal because I don't know your age, income or whatsoever. So let's just assume that you have checked all the boxes, the DSR thingy, everything can jalan, right? If it's your first house, I would not suggest you to buy an Airbnb project. I would rather you to buy typical 2 rooms or 3 rooms project that is for long-term rental. But if it's your third or fourth or fifth house, then yes, I may suggest you to go for that because it lessens your burden on paying the down payment and you leverage more on banks. And you mentioned that focusing in Johor, yes, I think Johor is one of the market that is very interesting. Even though the price per square feet is quite high now because developers are pricing in, people who are working in Singapore are coming over, right? So the price per square feet is slightly higher, but if you manage to find a sub-sales deal that is below market, I think by all means. Regardless of Airbnb property, long-term property, right? Regardless of these two, as investor, right, it always falls back to 2 things. For me, it's entry price and monthly installment. So if the entry price makes sense, for example, if let's say maybe in KLCC, you have maybe surrounding is selling for 700k for a studio. But then if I manage to find a 600k or 650k of studio, that I can almost match, and the location is almost the same, and per night, the price is almost the same, I think I'll go for the cheaper one because must always remember, entry price dictates your monthly installment. And with lesser monthly installment, which means that the chances of you covering from you with the bank, it's higher. Right? So it always falls back to 2 things, entry price and monthly installment. And of course, you can buy the studio or that particular Airbnb project if you have checked the long-term rental of that particular studio in that area can almost cover 80 to 90% of your monthly installment. If let's say the short-term rental method doesn't work, you still have cushion to fall back on. So you can do like a hybrid mode. And of course, you will be asking who will want to rent a studio which is beside KLCC, beside the JB Custom or something. You'll be surprised that you can target Airbnb operators. So which means that you can rent out your unit to Airbnb operators and they will rent it out, they will do their own stuff and everything, to rent out to potential clients and whatsoever. So then you take a fixed income from them. Maybe they will give you your monthly installment, let's say 3,000, they'll give you 2008, 2007, you rugi a bit, but then you have a sound of mind. Yeah, so that's one of the ways as well. And of course, buying a studio or Airbnb projects, right, the location that you buy must be really, really prime because you are already sacrificing the PSF, the price per square feet, will always be higher already. If you were to buy one, you really have to buy in like the right heart of that particular state. For example, like I said, for example, in Penang, maybe you buy near Komta, you buy some of the condos which are along the beach, which is legal to do Airbnb in Penang. In Johor, maybe you find those which is near the Singapore Custom, which is near the RNF Cove thingy. In KL, of course, KLCC, TRX and whatsoever. Landmark is very important because you're not only targeting Malaysians, you're targeting travelers from other countries as well. So your mindset is, once they think of Malaysia, where do they think of? Definitely is KLCC. So this kind of mindset. And one more thing is regarding this competition thingy. And just to add on, actually, I've received a lot of feedbacks on saying property cannot jalan already because there are a lot of competition. But I was thinking, right, a location is good. That's why only there are a lot of competitions. If let's say your area is very, I would say very outskirts, there is no demand for people to stay there, to rent there long term or short term, right? Why would you buy there? Definitely there is no competition. But if you're talking about in maybe Bangsa South, in KLCC, in TRX area, in Mont Kiara area, all of these areas are mushrooming, the properties are mushrooming over there. But then you don't see people complaining like, oh, I cannot rent out my house. Definitely no one. It's just a matter of the price that you set. If the price, let's say, is going for 2,000, you ask for 2005, 2008, then it's very difficult for you to reach. But then if you try to match the market price or slightly higher, I believe it's not much of a problem. Like for example, even banks are competing with one another for FD rates. For example, A bank, they offer you maybe 4% for 12 months. B bank, they offer you 3.85 for 9 months, which one would you choose? You are comparing, they are competing as well, and you as consumer, you have to choose which one is suitable for you. In this world, right, there is no sure win thingy. There is no competition area. Everywhere in this world is about competition. So yeah, I think that sums up this question. I dragged a bit far already. So to summarize, right, if it's your third or fourth property, you can buy. If the surrounding rental for that particular studio long-term wise almost matches around 80 to 90% of your monthly installment, you can go ahead as well. And if it's near a landmark, you can go ahead as well. And you have did your research on the Airbnb data over there. If it makes sense, let's just assume that around 50% occupancy per month. If it makes sense for you, then I think by all means you can go ahead for the Johor property. And with that, thank you so much for this email, and I'm really glad that you asked for my opinion. For those who have questions, or you have something that you need me to review, or you have questions you want to ask me, you can just let me know, or email me or DM me or whatsoever, or just comment down below. I'll be glad to assist you. And with that, thank you so much. My name is Dylan, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.